It began not with a knock on the door, but with a soft, digital chime, a notification. In the quiet, pre-dawn stillness of my life, that sound was the first, almost imperceptible crack in the foundation of everything I had built. We had moved to the Oaks for the silence, for the manicured lawns and the sense of order, a sanctuary after years of city chaos. We saw the Homeowners Association as a benevolent force, a collective of neighbors ensuring the flower beds were tidy and the property values remained robust. We had no idea we were signing a contract with a ghost, a silent partner that would eventually move in, take a seat at our dinner table, and systematically dismantle our lives, piece by piece. The first fine was for a trash can. Not for being out on the wrong day, but for being visible from the street on the right day. It had been nudged a few inches into view by the garbage truck. The citation arrived via the mandatory HOA app, Community Sync, a sleek black icon that became the digital fist of our overseers. The photo was taken from a bizarre, low angle, as if someone had crouched in the bushes to get the perfect, incriminating shot. $50. An annoyance, a petty fee I paid with an eye roll. But that was the hook. It was a test of compliance. The next came for a non-approved cultivar in the flower bed, a vibrant, rebellious splash of purple my wife had planted, a memory from her mother's garden. The fine was $100. Then another for a discolored roof shingle that no one from the ground could possibly see. $200. The app's notification sound, once benign, became a trigger for a spike of anxiety, a Pavlovian response to impending financial bleed. My attempts to reason were met with a wall of bureaucratic ice. The HOA board, led by its president, a man named Alistair Finch, was untouchable. Finch was a man who wore crisp polo shirts emblazoned with the Community ES logo and a smile that never reached his cold, calculating eyes. The board meetings, which I began to attend, were a masterclass in passive-aggressive tyranny. Held in a sterile community center room, they were less about discussion and more about the reading of edicts. Homeowners who dared to question fines were spoken over, their concerns meticulously logged and dismissed as non-germane to the community's aesthetic vision. I saw a young couple nearly in tears, fined into near bankruptcy over a child's plastic playhouse deemed an unpermitted structure. I watched an elderly man, Mr. Gable, be publicly shamed for the unruly growth of his hedges, his trembling hands clutching a sheaf of medical bills for the wife he was caring for. The air in that room was thick with the scent of fear and freshly brewed coffee, a truly nauseating combination. This was no longer about trash cans or flowers. It was a shakedown. I started digging, spending nights bathed in the blue glow of my computer screen, cross-referencing HOA financial statements with county records. The trail was murky, a labyrinth of shell companies and vague line items for landscaping services and security consultations that amounted to hundreds of thousands of dollars. A local landscaping company, Eden's Touch, seemed to be the sole beneficiary of most major contracts. A few more clicks revealed its sole proprietor, Alistair Finch's brother-in-law. The corruption wasn't just a rumor, it was a family business. The fines, the arbitrary penalties, they weren't for maintaining order. They were a revenue stream, a way to fund a quiet, comfortable coup against the very homeowners they were supposed to serve. The final, personal blow came when we received a lien notice against our house. The mountain of contested fines, plus exorbitant late fees and legal costs manufactured by the HOA's lawyer, who, I discovered, was Finch's college roommate, had been tied to our property. We were being bled dry. My wife's stress manifested in migraines that kept her in a dark room for days. The sound of our children laughing in the backyard felt like a relic from a different era. Our home was no longer a sanctuary. It was a gilded cage, its bars made of legal threats and financial ruin. I decided to run for the board. It was a Hail Mary, a desperate attempt to fight the monster from within its own belly. The election was a dark circus. Community Sync was flooded with polished anonymous posts smearing my character, suggesting financial instability and a radical desire to lower community standards. My lawn was littered with anonymous, hateful flyers in the dead of night. Finch's campaign was one of quiet, unassailable authority. He stood on his record of preserving property values, a phrase he repeated like a mantra, a shield against any accusation. On election night, in that same sterile room, the votes were tallied by a hand-picked committee. I lost in a landslide. The result was so lopsided it felt preordained, a scripted act in a play where I was the designated fool. The defeat was a physical weight, crushing the last of my hope. That night, sitting in the darkness of my living room, I understood the true nature of the Oaks. It wasn't a community, it was a fiefdom, and we were all serfs, living on Alistair Finch's land. We had to leave. The fight had cost us our savings, our peace, and very nearly our sanity. The "for sale" sign going up on our lawn felt like a surrender, but also a release. We found a small rental house in a nearby, unincorporated town, a place with dandelions in the grass and no HOA. The sale of the house, however, was slow. The lien and the cloud of HOA disputes scared away several buyers. Then, one Tuesday, an offer came in. A full-price cash offer from an anonymous LLC. It was our miracle, our escape hatch. We signed the papers with a frantic, desperate gratitude, just happy to be free. It was months later, our lives finally settling into a new, quieter rhythm, that I had to go back. ID left a box of tools in the garage and the new owner had agreed to let me pick it up. Driving into the Oaks felt like entering a museum of my own trauma. The lawns were, of course, immaculate. The silence, profound. I collected my tools from the now stranger in my old home, and as I was leaving, I saw him, Alistair Finch. He was standing on the sidewalk, not in front of his own house, but 2 doors down, holding his phone at a precise angle, taking a picture of a slightly overgrown gutter. He turned and saw me. There was no surprise in his eyes, only a faint, cold amusement. "Just keeping up standards," he said, his voice a quiet blade. I nodded, wanting only to get back to my car, to my freedom. "I was sorry to see you leave," he continued, a smirk playing on his lips. "But we're very happy with the new property. It's a prime lot. Once we tear down the existing structure, the view for the new condos will be exceptional." The world seemed to tilt. The new property. I followed his gaze, which led directly to my old house. The house he now owned through an anonymous LLC. The pieces, sharp and cruel, clicked into a horrifying final picture. The fines, the harassment, the lien that forced a desperate sale. It was never just about the money. It was a coordinated campaign of property value manipulation. They targeted the vulnerable, the resistors, driving them out, devaluing their properties with liens and legal trouble, only to swoop in with anonymous shell companies and buy them for a pittance. They were not just corrupt. They were a corporate raiding party, cannibalizing their own community to assemble land for lucrative development deals. My escape wasn't a defeat I had narrowly avoided. It was the final, calculated move in a game I never knew I was playing. I had not sold my house to a stranger. I had sold it, at a loss, to the very man who had destroyed me. And as I drove away, the serene, silent streets of the Oaks no longer looked peaceful. They looked like a graveyard for dreams, and Alistair Finch was the groundskeeper, patiently waiting for the next plot to open.